Break a leg.
Good to see you. Good morning. Thank you.
You all set?
I think so. Yeah. Hey, Carol. The new shorter version.
The new shorter version? You mean it went from 40 to 30? I think it's down to about 6. Oh, really short.
Good morning, Carol. Hi, sorry. Good to see you.
My wife.
Yes, welcome. Yeah, good to see you. You're going to be great. Wow.
Really 6 minutes? Oh, 6 pages.
It's actually way shorter than I thought it was. Based on all these things.
Well, I talked to this guy for a while. By the way, this is shared.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning. Good morning and welcome to Fountain Street Church. My name is Reverend Greta Seidohl and I use she, her pronouns, and I have the honor of serving here as your assistant minister, and it is good to be with you. I haven't been in a summer Sunday here physically in our chapel yet because I started with all of you in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. So it is good to be present in this space with you. Good morning. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome here. And it is with that wholehearted welcome that I hope that you bring the fullness of yourself into this space. Your joys and your fears, your tears and your laughter, bring it all. May it come with you into community because we do not travel alone. And it is in that spirit of traveling together that I am again grateful to be here as part of our summer speaker series with Patrick Eman, who will be giving our talk this morning, and with Margie Peterson, our beautiful musician. Our summer speaker series is special not only in that we meet in this chapel space and not in the sweltering hot sanctuary over there, but because we welcome voices from within our congregation to our pulpit to share their wisdom with us. So again, thank you to Patrick and the rest of our summer speakers for being here. It is a holiday weekend, and I also recognize that it is a holiday weekend that might bring with us this year in particular a bit of cognitive dissonance, as many of us struggle with the realities of our government and the decisions that have been made in the past week, months, years. And so I want to bring to you as our invitation to worship something a little bit different this morning. I'll invite you to take a deep breath and settle into your body and your seat. You might have heard our gathering music, My Country 'Tis of Thee. And for our invitation to worship, I offer these rewritten lyrics by Reina Del Cid, originally put out on TikTok, but then became a protest cry anthem song in the last weeks. I invite you to hear them as a bit of a prayer and to welcome the dissonance with the words you might know. My country, 'tis of thee, land of inequity, of thee I sing. Land where my mother cried, fought, bled, and sacrificed for rights which are now denied, let freedom ring. Land of dystopia, religious myopia. I don't know if I can sing it. I mourn for thee. Behind dusty oaken doors, 6-robed dinosaurs conspire to rage a holy war over our bodies. But the true bell of liberty, she does not mute easily. Long may she ring. Her echoes will amplify, marching till morning light, all genders side by side till freedom rings. Her echoes will amplify till freedom rings. Let freedom ring, my friends. Let us make freedom ring today and every day, and let us start by raising our voices better than I did already this morning. I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join us in our gathering hymn, which is printed for you. This Land is Your Land by Woody Guthrie.
Good morning and welcome. This might help. Two readings today. Contemporary wisdom as follows. Freedom is the ground of all vital activity. Faith without freedom is dogma. Love without freedom is an illusion. Justice without freedom is oppression. In every instance, freedom is the factor that sustains and completes the other goal. It is the oxygen of the human spirit, indispensable element for growth and wholeness. From David Rankin. Ancient wisdom is from Micah. He has shown you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? But to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Thank you.
I invite you to join me in the spirit of meditation and prayer. Once again, I invite you to find your body, even if that means you got to wiggle a little first. If you can, to plant your feet firmly on the floor, to relax your shoulders. I heard you all breathe in. Let's do it again together. Breathe in and out. With each breath, let your shoulders relax just a little bit more. Let your hands fall softly to your lap. Let your gaze soften. And I offer us this meditation from the Reverend Sarah Eileen Lawal. Spirit of life and love, in this time of uncertainty, of fear and angst, our nation holds its collective breath. In this time when rhetoric blusters about and words are used as weapons, our nation clenches its fist and tightens its shoulders, eyes squeezed shut, some preparing for a fight. May we remember. May we remember that we are a people of resilience, that we have faced uncertainty before. We have weathered storms, we have been consumed by flames, and we have risen like a phoenix from the ashes. And we will again. We, the people. May we remember our shared humanity, our universal kinship, our interdependence as we unclench our fists and breathe together. Breathing in love and breathing out peace. May we recognize the spark of the divine inside all of us, even those we are not quite sure about. In this time of uncertainty, we remember that the good will go on as we work to move forward together. We, the people, seeking that which unites us, with our arms reaching out wide for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. May love prevail. In the name of all that is holy, we pray. Amen. It is from that place of recognition that our breath and our works are connected that I invite the offering. The offering can be a little bit rote. It can be a thing you just pass down next to you that like, okay, yep, we've hit that part where I check my phone or I read some part of the bulletin I've been handed while I wait for the music to be done. But instead, I want to offer that it is not unintentionally placed after the prayer, that it is a physical embodiment of that which we devote our hearts to. So give as you can, a little or a lot, knowing that when we do it together, that is when we go the furthest. The offering will now be gratefully and graciously received.
Well, I've spent the last week reducing the content. It was the hard part. Thank you for joining us on our 4th of July weekend service. This is the time when our nation takes a moment to remember the Declaration of Independence. As recent events have shown, we continue to develop the Constitution. It's a living document, and I look forward to our country taking a closer look at the Constitution, perhaps even this year. Since the 4th, we'll be here soon. Greta, Joe, and I want to introduce a recognition of our country, our government, and our duty to the future. I will offer remarks from 2 presidents. Both placed their lives in peril for the good of the country, without reservation for their own mortality. And those would be Dwight Eisenhower and Abraham Lincoln. The following reflection came at a time when the world was in recovery from the second of 2 wars. They were world wars, the wars to end all wars. It was a time when the future was seen as hopeful, using international cooperation and financing to nurture sustainable societies in all countries. The investment in peace included a new world order, connecting finance, the United Nations, and the adaptation of the principles of democracy. A reading. In vast stretches of the earth, people awoke today in hunger. They will spend the day in unceasing toil. As the sun goes down, they will still know hunger. They will see suffering in the eyes of their children. Many despair that their labor might not ever decently shelter their families or protect them against disease. So long as this is so, peace and freedom will be in danger throughout our world. For whatever free men loss, wherever free men lose hope of progress, liberty will be weakened and the seeds of conflict will be sown. President Eisenhower also said, "A people that values its privileges above its principles will soon lose both." Peace means the acceptance of law, the fostering of justice in all the world. And I like to believe that people in the long run are going to be doing more to promote peace than our governments promote peace. Indeed, I think that people want peace so much that one of these days, government had better get out of the way and let them have it. About 100 years earlier, Abraham Lincoln said, "The people are the rightful masters of both Congress and the courts. Not to overthrow the Constitution, but to overthrow the men who pervert it." And I imagine Lincoln saying that, and if Eisenhower could speak back, Lincoln would say that the people would want to overthrow the men who pervert our Constitution. And Eisenhower might say, one of his quotes, "May we never confuse honest dissent with disloyal subversion." These men had our future in mind. And also, if the United States once admits that international disputes can be settled by the United States, by the United Nations using force, then we will have destroyed the foundation of that organization, the United Nations, and our best hope of establishing a world order will be lost. Also, a strong sense of the future. In the early days of COVID, my thoughts, in the early days of COVID, it was difficult to realize that we were in the grasp of a very difficult reality. I was eager for solutions and a way forward that was something other than uncertainty and despair. Turning to the news, I observed the emotional taunts and disputes of social media working into the national dialogue of news and leaders. We all had to use the resources available to us to stay alive. It was a danger that was real, and we watched unthinkable numbers of people dying every day. There was no medical response that was both ready and available. As much as we were used to health care that is responsive and effective, we were left to daily updates of how to cope with this pandemic. Follow the science became a repeated message for the public. A dialogue of dispute began to denigrate the role of science. I resented the support for criticism found in social media. Many reported news stories and even criticism from the White House. Eager to restore the value and dignity of science, I sought an available trial for a virus vaccine. I preferred the medical basis for Novavax and was able to join that trial of some 32,000 people. When asked by our Religious Services Committee to provide a talk, it was easy to select a topic that was already on my mind. My readiness came from childhood framed in science. I was born on a military base and lived a life of discipline, determination, science, and purpose. For those 17 years, debate and insult were not part of my family life. How easy it would have been to show up here today and report that science had found a single answer for everyone, and we could return to daily life, which is still in question. The role of science is based on search for what is real and what is true. Through a process of peer review and testing, agreement is reached when a theory can predict a physical fact, and that physical fact is later proven to be true through a test. It became settled scientific fact when a consensus was reached. More on that and the word consensus in a moment. It was my hope that a national consensus around COVID could be reached. However, the medical community was only beginning to find scientific solution to the illness that could also be demonstrated as predictable as well as true. Once there was considerable scientific evidence, our government struggled to resolve a way to apply the process in an orderly fashion. It seemed there was a need for political consensus and not just a majority vote. The decision-making process of our democracy does not rely on the process of consensus. Our government is a hierarchical structure that relies on debate and majority. It is largely a winner-take-all process. Our democracy finds agreement through decisions reached by majority and draws from the principles that are also found in Robert's Rules of Order. By contrast, consensus uses process to reach agreement that includes many participants of the group, as many as possible. The typical values for consensus decision-making would include inclusion of those that have any stake in the choice, in the decision, and full participation if possible. Inclusion. Also participation. By contributing opinions, the members are offering suggestions, the insight of their own awareness and experience. These are presented and shared throughout the group. Orderly search for solutions that meet mostly needs, that most of the needs would be cooperation in this process. And there is an egalitarianism where each member has equal opportunity to amend and vote. Solution-mindedness is another value. Shape a proposal to meet the most concerns. Consensus decision-making is a creative and dynamic way of reaching agreement between all members of a group. Instead of simply voting for an item and having the majority of the group getting their way, the group using consensus is committed to finding solutions that everyone actively supports, or at least can live with. This ensures that all opinions, ideas, and concerns are taken into account. Through listening closely to each other, the group aims to come up with the proposals that work for everyone. I've found there is a significant interest in England to reshape governance there by using consensus. That would be the land of Brexit. There are other countries struggling as well, parenthetically here. Israel is now forming its fifth government in that many years. That's not a picture of stability. Other evidence of interest in this process is found at MIT. They have a booklet published, A Short Guide to Consensus Building, and other universities. And perhaps you already know that the United Nations uses a very deliberate process of developing consensus. It can be found on their website on how to support objectives. Once the objectives have been selected by a vote, the vote of the members, the consensus is done through steps taken to match needs and solutions. And this is done largely by committee without voting. But again, the same process of sharing needs and ideas. The assigned members participate in negotiated agreement before taking their work to the voting members for adaptation. By evolving agreement using a mutual search for solutions, the greater good can be recognized and perhaps served. When used for governance, and organizations established to assign objectives, even possibly a co-op or something like that, there are steps taken to support the outcome of consensus. In addition to the values listed above, there are a couple that might prove helpful if used by Congress. Ensure participation by each presenting their needs and recommended solutions. Also, induce multi-voting. This comes by having more frequent voting on smaller parts of the process, but also in a narrowing down of the needs that have been presented, give each member of the group more than one vote, maybe 3 or 4 votes, and they can pick their favorites. So you begin to find where the greatest support is through a process that's visible as part of their efforts. Pinpoint priorities. This is not done enough in our government, I don't think. Pinpointing priorities and establishing to find the greatest value in solutions that are recommended and the timing of those solutions. Looking at science, highly skilled people collaborate to identify what is predictable science. Science is managed by people proving their knowledge, proving their beliefs, and presenting it to be picked apart by their peers, and most of them have doctorate degrees. So this is not a casual process in the community of science. We're not talking about scientific consensus as being a final answer. Rather, a scientific consensus is settled and is understood to be a starting point that everyone agrees to based on proven evidence. Now go find more evidence and prove this wrong if we can. That's why settled decisions are really quite durable, because they have been picked apart over and over again by a large community. From that point, future research is trying to find a better understanding of what is going on with that consensus that they have reached, constantly questioning themselves. Taking a different look, we see that science is prepared to build a consensus based on proof and evidence. Likewise, the moment that evidence provides proof of a completely different conclusion, the community is prepared to align to the new awareness without resistance. So they can change. They know how to change. They agree to change before their process begins, when proven necessary. Here we see that science is very different from governance. Using consensus building in government would be valuable, but government is not able to review policy and reverse it in a new direction based on only evidence. They must have electorate process as well, setting policy for the new evidence, for the new proof, for the new information. Setting policy in Congress also involves the undoing of previous policy and legislation. So it's much more complicated. They are not prepared to reflex with the mere presentation of the truth. As I look at what is being reported by the January 6th Commission, it appears to me that there has been a great deal of consensus building based on the evidence and the facts that they have found. I'm heartened by this. This is remarkable work. It seems they are prepared to direct discovery in new directions when evidence shows them a new path. The microphone is nearby. Sorry. An early example of scientific consensus, and seeing that consensus develop, what came about through evidence that was sought in London in 1854. Dr. John Snow was a physician treating his patients for an epidemic of cholera, not unusual in the 1800s. Only certain areas were impacted, and the public suspected lifestyle was the cause. Dr. Snow's research revealed that sewage in certain locations was getting into this water supply, contaminating the very water that everyone was drinking, thus causing the spread of cholera. He is known as one of the earliest epidemiologists, and this was pretty much groundbreaking and resisted fully by the citizens, the leaders, and the Parliament. He had a tough time. So I have witnessed a journey through a period of time when life is suddenly made more comfortable and productive. And this would be because of science. Our lives changed. My father grew up on a farm using a horse-drawn wagon. I was present during the time of nuclear discovery and the notion of our very weak, fragile mortality. It was a tough time. Better living through chemistry was something that became popular as an advertising theme. Chemistry was exploding. Organic chemistry didn't really become practiced art until mostly after Eisenhower's terms in office. We learned how to use energy for nearly every kind of human activity, including thought, in the form of artificial intelligence. All of these things using ever more energy. Science is also causing some of our greatest problems. We gained with those things that changed in the last century, but gone are the days of Rachel Carson and her book, The Silent Spring. But even more powerful chemicals are used widely and even over the counter. She wrote at the time where there was widespread use of DDT. Living on Army bases, once a week during the warm months, our base would be fogged by a truck coming by and simply removing the visibility of the trees, the buildings, the sidewalk, and as kids, we played in it. It was fun. But it was DDT. Science is also causing some of our greatest problems. Gone are the days of Rachel Carson, but more powerful chemicals are everywhere and for other activities, including control of pests. Problems with water quality remain long after Dr. Snow's warnings. In my community, the annual water report, which you can view online, probably for your community as well, the annual water report shows PFAS testing levels above 2 parts per million. Mind you, this was after the water had been filtered. What I have learned is that the public is the authority best suited to use consensus to change the problems that we know. We can react more quickly than governments. We can cause the awareness needed to anticipate the indicated changes that will be necessary. The first rule of consensus is to get everyone involved that has an interest in the problem. It requires us taking an active role. We need to live that solution here. We know the results that have come from debate and social media that pays people to become influencers. We need to become our own influencers for the purpose of good and truth, and perhaps democracy. There are 2 very interesting reads that I would encourage you to consider. They both take a critical look at trends that have become visible in this country and around the world. The first is an editorial reported by David Brooks, New York Times. Globalization is over. The global culture wars have begun. This is the most serious read that I've found in the last 6 months. I have watched him discuss this recognition that the world order from World War II has lost its appeal in many countries. Many of those countries have autocratic leaders that wish to create a culture that does not want to be part of that globalization nor that world order that has held us all functional, pretty well held together over the last 100 years. He writes, sure, globalization as flows of trade will continue, but globalization as the driving logic of world affairs, that seems to be over. Economic rivalries have now merged with political, moral, and other rivalries into global contests for dominance. Sound familiar? Globalization has been replaced by something that looks a lot like global culture war. Thus saith Mr. Brooks. The second reading is a small book brought to my attention by Kirsten Lundeen. The author is Timothy Snyder, and the title is On Tyranny. It speaks to the changes that were observed by David Brooks. He attempts to show the mechanisms how that is happening. He describes it as the politics of eternity in the summation of his book. And a current example, in his opinion, would be Make America Great Again. As we prepare to conclude our service, I ask that you plan to vote this year. Please do. And engage others in the exercise, discussion, share the ideas. Make us more self-aware, make ourselves aware of each other. I want each of you to demand from your legislator, this is a second request, to demand from your legislator an absolute solution to an honest election. I have personally met with my state legislator and asked that each election inspector, they're called, so those working at the poll with responsibility for the vote, that each election inspector at a polling station be given the results of that election at that poll. Before they have left the building, they know the outcome. And collectively, around the country, this would create a human database of truth. It's a simple request. She acknowledged my request and said she took it seriously. I hope so. What could be better than our own personal witness, confrontation, encountering evidence of the truth? This would create a human database of truth. We believe we have freedom. We believe we must stand to resolve a government that is unable to find truth without our support. And be scientific about it. And when you engage with others, be certain to do justice, to love mercy, and be humble with the truth that you believe. Bless you all. Well, someone proposed that we sing a hymn. So, being in the choir, turns out I'm familiar with it. So I've offered to sing the first verse, which is probably not going to happen unless I have some water. Sorry, I'm apparently dehydrated. So, hymn 159. This is my song. It has been adopted in several churches, Lutheran being one of the first ones, have come up with their own lyrics using this song from this music from Sibelius. And this is probably the most traditional, but in our hymnal we have another use of this music for a different hymn, and we sang it not so very long ago when Irwin was speaking. This is my song. This is my song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace for for lands afar and mine. This is my home, the place where my heart is. Here are my hopes, my dreams, my holy shrine. In other hearts, on other lands are beating with hopes and dreams as high and high as mine. Please join. The summer's days are bluer than the ocean. The sunlight beams on velvet leaf and twine. But other lands have sunlight blue and clover, and skies everywhere as blue as mine. Oh, hear my song, thou God of all the nations. The songs of trees for their land and for mine.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Margie. Thank you all for spending part of your day with us. I'm going to take one of the challenges you gave us to just take a moment to say, if you have not heard about or have investigated being a part of Together West Michigan, which is an organization that Fountain Street is a proud member of. Is there anybody here who went to the event on Thursday? Could you raise your hand? If you are not raising your hand, look around and see who is raising their hand. Together West Michigan is pretty much doing exactly what Patrick challenged us to do. So I would encourage you to ask those folks about that event on Thursday and about what it would look like to be involved as a part of Fountain Street or other institutions that you belong to. And that is the only announcement I will leave you with. The rest of them can be found in your Friday Flash. I encourage you to find a copy either physically or in your inbox and check out what else is happening in our beloved community here. By way of our blessing for today, I want to give you words from the Reverend Leslie Takahashi. They are part of a prayer, but I also think that they embody a blessing that we can take out with us into the world. If you are a force of love, be loving to those dear ones who would rid the world of hatred and greed. If you are a force of possibility, seed opportunity for those who believe they are forgotten. If you are a larger freedom, break the chains of oppression and ignorance in which so many lives are bound. If you are the power of healing, please, oh please, bring comfort to the little ones who are imprisoned away from their sources of care and comfort. Whatever you are, any force of the more, which allows us to reach beyond this reality into a more inclusive and loving presence, give energy to these precious ones who would make a difference. And may their and our actions inspire all of us to do whatever is in our power to make it known that we will not allow our neighbors to be treated as less than human. May it be so because we make it so. Amen, and blessed be. Go with love. See you next week.